Well, it is 12:02, so we are going to get started so that we can be a respecter of everyone's time because it's Friday, and who wants meetings to start late and run late on Fridays? Nobody. So we'll go ahead and get started. I do see that we have some lovely community members joining us today. I want to say thank you all for tuning in to the Monroe County Women's Commission meeting. So this has been a while since we've met. I think we haven't met since March. Has it been since March? Okay.
Yes.
Well, it's happy to be back on the call with all of you. Commissioners, I've missed you tremendously. So thanks for making time today. We'll go ahead and jump in. So I wanted to do some introductions, but I don't think, oh, Becky is here. So we have a new commissioner appointment, Rebecca Udacong. Congratulations and welcome to the Monroe County Women's Commission. Becky, are you able to give us a few words, an introduction? I see you're in the chat saying thank you. It's okay if you want to put some remarks in the chat. Just want to say we're happy to have you. Oh, got it. Completely understand. Thanks, Becky. So we'll go ahead and review our agenda. And it is my mistake that I don't think I resent the minutes, but you should all have them. If you don't, I can find them and resend. We're going to review our agenda, approve our agenda, and we'll go straight into reviewing and approving the minutes. And when we're ready, I'll take a motion to approve the agenda.
I move to approve.
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor of approving the May 14th, 2021 agenda, signify by aye or some sort of Zoom indication.
Aye.
Any opposed? Anyone abstaining from this approval? Okay, great. We have an agenda. Let's take a moment to look at our minutes. And I want to give us, as we review, special shout out to Rima, new commissioner, jumped in, took a position, and has been an amazing secretary. So these are Rima's minutes that we're reviewing. Thank you, Rima. And when we're ready, we'll entertain a motion to approve.
I move to approve.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll also second.
Wonderful. All in favor of approving our minutes from the March 2021 meeting, signify by aye.
Aye.
See some hands raised. Okay, any opposed? Anyone abstaining from this vote? Wonderful.
Controversial.
I know, I'm like hot button topics, right, Liz? Wonderful. Okay, we have our minutes approved. Thank you all for doing that. So we'll keep rolling. Commissioner updates. I do have some, I don't know if you all know this yet, so I feel like I need to share. Jill Ferguson has resigned. She had a lot of things that just continue to get added to her plate. She did give me permission to share that it was just some personal and family things that were going on. So she had to prioritize the care of her family and friends. So she took a step back, but she is still like waiting in the wings in case we need a partnership with RBB. And she also still absolutely wants to know what's going on with the Women's Commission. So we missed her. We miss her, but we hope to get her back later. So that is a resignation. Please send her kudos and all the warm thoughts. Phenomenal commissioner. It also pains me to say that there is another resignation upon us. I cannot bring myself to announce this one. So if anyone else wants to take this, they can.
I'll do it since it's mine.
That'd be great.
Yeah. So as some of you know, I'm retiring. And that means also that I need to step down from this commission. It's been a wonderful, I don't even know how many years, quite a few years that I've been able to join you and others in doing a few things in this community on behalf of women and their families. So I am sad to resign, but I'm also heartened to know that we were able to accomplish a few things. And I really appreciate working with all of you in whatever capacity we have over the years, currently as well as before. But it's just time, you know, things change. As you were talking about Jill and her family, things change, and it's time.
Liz, I'm so sorry to hear that, but I wish you well.
Thank you. It's been lovely being able to do this work. I'll tell you, I love meaningful impact work, and this has been very enriching for me to be a part of this group and the things that they've been able to do off and on throughout the years. So I'm thankful and grateful that I got to serve, and want to wish you all the best.
We are going to miss you. That's a huge impact.
Yes.
I'm sorry to see you leave, but best of luck in your new interests and your new hobbies and new activities.
Yeah, I'll be busy. Don't worry about that. There are some health challenges with my husband, and that's a big part of it. I got to be the caregiver.
Liz, I will honestly say I will not be selfish in this season and say anything other than thank you so much for your service, because I remember when I first started chairing, you also were like, you know, I think it's about time for me to, and I begged you. I was like, Liz, please, like, don't leave me. Like, I need you to do this work with me. And so you stayed on, and not only did you stay on, but you served as the vice chair, and you have been so wonderful to work with. So I'm not going to pull that string again and do the whole Liz.
Yeah,
like
no, there's no string left. The string is all used up.
So thank you for your service, not just for the Women's Commission, but just how you have served women in our community in general, right? All the things that you have done. Congratulations on your retirement. And we are sending you all well wishes. Please let us know if you're in the future open to some sort of appropriately distanced.
Yeah, we'll see.
Social
what
gathering.
can happen. We'll see what can happen.
Okay, good stuff. Anyone else want to tell me that they're rolling out? Anything else I need to know about?
Well, you could drive through and say goodbye to me on May 27th. They're having a thing at United Way for me.
Oh, good.
So
good to know.
It's a drive-through thing from 4 to 6 on May 27th. And so anybody can drive through and be a part of that in the parking lot at 431 South College. Be happy to have you all.
Wonderful. There. Okay. Thank you. Peter, I see you're saying some wonderful things with that smile of yours, but I can't hear you.
We can't hear you. It's like your volume is down. I'm not a good lip reader. I've got 12 grandkids and never learned that. Oh,
it's
well.
Okay.
You can type it in the chat. There you go.
Well, thank you all again for your service. We will miss you, Liz, but we know that you have left us in a wonderful position with your wisdom and your insight and your contributions. Oh, there's Peter. We got a voice. Go for it, Peter.
Oh, so you could hear me testing my microphone, but you couldn't hear the nice things I was saying about Liz?
Right, right.
The only thing I wanted to say is, Liz, your impact in the community has been blowing up my inbox.
Oh,
I have been
my.
getting so many emails about how impactful you've been. So
I
congratulations.
don't
on
even know
everything.
what to say about that. Sometimes it's good and sometimes it's bad, you know?
It's good.
Being an activist takes its toll.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, wonderful. You may notice a special and new face on the call with us today. So we are going to open for public comment. I do want to invite Julie Duhan from Tandem to be our first public comment, and then we'll open up to anyone else. But Julie, the time is yours.
Thank you. I'm Julie Duhan, and I am one of the co-founders of Tandem Community Birth Center and Postpartum House. So we're one of Bloomington's newest 501c3s. And if it's okay, I will share some slides. Is that okay?
I think it should be okay.
Let me see if I can share the screen.
Look at that.
Okay, you can see some giant slides. Okay.
Yep.
So Patty and I are the two co-founders. Currently, our board is at 4 members. Our maximum board size will be 9, and we're working right now to expand the board to that 9 as we get closer to being an operational organization. So some of you may already know that Indiana's healthcare outcomes, specifically with respect to maternal outcomes, are not great. So one of Tandem's our driving mission is really about improving those outcomes, and in particular, increasing options for care. We understand that our community has diverse needs, backgrounds, wants, and as long as we're providing safe options, they should have the opportunity to pick the option that is most appropriate for them and their family. So our tagline is catch babies, help families, build communities. That's what we're about. So we have 3 sort of core components to Tandem. One is launching this summer. It's our educational programming. So all of the standard things you would expect: childbirth education, lactation education. We'll have an Ask the Midwife opportunity this summer with Hattie, who is a midwife. And then the medical clinic and birth center. So birth centers are heavily regulated in the state of Indiana. Maybe the only thing more regulated than a birth center is an abortion center. And so it will take at minimum 6 months to get our birth center licensed to operate in the state. But meanwhile, we'll be able to launch the medical clinic, which will offer care from puberty to menopause, basic pap smears, birth control consultations, things like that. And so we're hoping once we get our space, then we will be able to hire our certified nurse midwives, begin offering basic medical clinic options shortly thereafter. And then again, a minimum of 6 months after getting our space, we'll be looking to open the actual birth center where we'll have birthing suites and people can actually give birth there. So, and then the last piece is the postpartum house. The dates for this have jumped around. We were initially planning to lead with the postpartum house, then the pandemic hit, we reevaluated, now we're following with the postpartum house, but now the pandemic feels a little less, the hope is increasing that the pandemic is ending and its most direct impacts on our communities. So this may get moved a little bit in terms of its timeline, but some of you may be familiar with BABS that used to exist in Bloomington. They served over 600 families a year with education, support groups, et cetera. They were fiscally insolvent, which is why they closed. They did not close for a lack of need or a lack of want, or even a lack of support. They just needed a little different operating model, I think. So we are not planning to be BABS, but we do hope to fill some of the gaps that they left. And but by centering around this medical these medical offerings, actual medical services, we think we can be much more fiscally stable. So the postpartum house side may feel a little bit more like a BABS kind of facility, except in addition to that daytime classes, support groups, services, drop-in ability, it's also going to have spaces for overnight stay. So imagine you just gave birth. Maybe you're coming straight from the birth center, straight from the hospital, straight from home, or maybe you gave birth 2 months ago and your partner's gone back to work and you haven't gotten any sleep for 3 weeks and you're having trouble with feeding and you don't know when you last showered and it's just starting to feel like too much. So you can come, and the postpartum house is going to be staffed by postpartum doulas. It's not a medical care facility. Think of it as almost like a short-term stay group home or a nonprofit hotel. So we're going to make sure that you are nourished, hydrated, you get help with that, your positioning for holding the baby for feeding, that the doula is going to hold the baby while you take a nice hot shower. They're going to hold the baby while you take a nap. And also it's going to be a central point where we can bring to you all of the other services that are important in postpartum healing that people often don't think about. You know, they think, I got my baby, I go home, I'm good. And they don't realize now they also maybe need pelvic floor physical therapy. They could use a visit from a perinatal mood and anxiety disorder support person. They need a lactation consultant. All of these things, maybe the baby has tongue tie and they have questions about latch. So we're going to be bringing specialists in these areas to do consultations in the postpartum house for anybody spending the night, and also for our daytime visitors who may not be doing the overnight option. We think this could be a great option for people who are looking for, a baby shower gift the pregnant person in your lives, a 3-night stay at postpartum house, and let them really be taken care of. We're going to also teach people how to monitor their own health postpartum. So if they feel like they're experiencing too much pain or bleeding too much, or they're not sure if their blood pressure or their temperature is something they should be talking to their doctor or midwife about, we can help them really feel confident in trusting their own body about what their needs are postpartum, and make sure that we can help them advocate for themselves and getting additional medical care if they need it. We know that maternal mortality and poor maternal outcomes, maternal mortality doesn't always happen the day you give birth. Sometimes it's in the weeks or months following giving birth. And sometimes it's a lack of trust in your own self that you really have to get care. You hear a doctor or a nurse hotline say, well, it's probably fine. And it's not. And so this is about really empowering people to say, no, I know my body and this doesn't feel right, and I want additional care. I need additional help. So really trying to promote the idea that maternal health doesn't end when the baby is born. So what have we done? We started back in the fall of 2019, and we said, Patty and I said, if we can take 5 months and develop a business plan, if at the end of 5 months we can still tolerate working with each other and we still want to do it, then we're going to do it. And so we developed the business plan, and February 28th of 2020, we incorporated Indiana, and then we spent the next several months rewriting our business plan a few times because of the pandemic. We had the opportunity to work with the nonprofit legal clinic at IU before they closed in the summer, in order to both write our bylaws and apply for our 501c3 status, which we were formally given that at the beginning of this year. And we've been doing as much networking as we can. We've had some initial fundraising. This year is really our fundraising year. We're working on policies and procedures. I've got several interns from IU working with us. We're collaborating with James Clausen, who has a maternal informatics research lab at IU in the informatics department, in order to make sure that we can have exceptional data as we go forward to show the quality of our care and our services. So our biggest barriers, we have to have a collaborating physician to operate a birth center in Indiana. And that is a huge, huge barrier. And our climate for obstetrics in Bloomington is IU Health and one independent obstetrician. Other than that, there aren't currently any OBs. However, HealthNet is expanding into obstetrics, and as it happens, we have found an OB, an Indiana licensed OB, who is willing to be our collaborative physician. We haven't advertised this yet, so you're getting the secret insider information because we're just still finalizing our contract with him. And once he signs on the dotted line, we'll be spreading the news far and wide that we have a doctor who will sign both collaborative agreements with our certified nurse midwives, as well as provide the medical director oversight required for the birth center. So zoning is a challenge. There is no zoning code for the state of Indiana that is for a birth center. So we either end up getting, for the city or for the county, we either get lumped in as a medical clinic or as a hospital. And so far we've been able to negotiate really well with the city of Bloomington. They said that they're going to consider us to be a medical clinic, which gives us a lot of opportunity in terms of what locations are available to us. The county, because we have looked at a few county properties, is still leaning towards classifying us as a hospital, which makes that much more challenging. So at the moment, we're focusing on staying inside city limits. And then, fundraising is a challenge. We had some great fundraising ideas we've had to scrap and now trying to figure out how to rework in the context of the pandemic. But we're applying for grants as well as doing fundraising. And then just around the location space, there are a lot of regulatory hurdles. Things like, they specify, how wide our hallways have to be and what percentage of our building has to be new construction versus old. And there's just a lot, how many refrigerators we can have. There's a lot that's specified that we have to comply with. So we're in the running for the Jack Hopkins Social Services Grant. We applied for an SCI-RAMC grant and a Postpartum Support International grant. We're still applying. We're watching every grant opportunity that comes our way. We have a $40 campaign. There was a petition that circulated in Bloomington when the last certified nurse midwife had caught her last baby at IU Health, and there were no more midwives who were provisioned at the hospital. This petition circulated, said we want more midwives and we want a birth center, and it got over 1,000 signatures. And so we sort of have been operating on this premise: if we can get those 1,000 people who said they want more midwives and they want a birth center, if we can get them each to donate $40, we can show how much of a grassroots effort this is. That this is something that is truly good for our community. So we want people to really feel a part of Tandem. We've been selling postpartum pregnancy and sibling gift bags, and then we also allow people to sponsor them, and we're donating those bags to All Options and to Hannah Center and to El Centro. We are starting to work on a program for sponsorships. So for example, if someone wanted to donate $20,000, then we might name a birthing suite after them. And we're in the beginnings of getting an online gala style fundraiser going. And we have this idea also for quilt squares. So if you think of going into Wonder Lab and there are the bricks as you go in, and people have written messages or remembrances or other dedications on those bricks. We're thinking we can give people quilt squares and have that transferred to fabric. And we know a quilter who would be willing to quilt those for us, and we can hang them in the birthing suite. So when you're in labor, you see people's, well wishes and hopes for you. So location considerations, we're not going to lease a space until we have $40,000 in hand. That's that first major fundraising goal that we have, because we want to make sure we have enough padding that we're not going to just immediately not be able to pay rent. Fortunately, once we have a space, we'll pretty rapidly be able to have some services in there, assuming it's not completely deteriorating. And that will allow us to generate some income simultaneously while continuing to fundraise and seek other grants. We have a volunteer architect who's going to do all of our design needs for the birth center and for the postpartum house. And we have a volunteer carpenter who wants to help us do like Habitat for Humanity style builds with our volunteers who maybe can't contribute a lot of money, but they can, you know, hit a nail on the head. So we want to be close to the new hospital. We're staying in the city, and we're also exploring, you know, we're expecting to have to lease, but we're exploring, we've been talking to a few potential investors about them possibly purchasing a space for us and then giving us a long-term lease for that space. So, you know, good news, there's a lot of demand for out-of-hospital birth options. We have that 1,000 signature petition in town, but also we just have people calling Tandem and emailing Tandem regularly saying, hey, will you be open in like 6 months, 7 months? Not yet, but hopefully soon they'll be able to start saying, yes, we'll be open for you. And then there are other states that have been very intentionally during the pandemic actually encouraging birth centers to open in order to draw healthy patients away from hospitals that are overwhelmed by COVID patients and other patients who are sick. We know that birth centers provide safe, evidence-based care. There's a lot of great data supporting birth centers. The kinds of patients we can accept are very restricted by the state. So only people with healthy, normal pregnancies are going to be eligible to give birth at the birth center, though we can see more patients. Some patients may choose to come to us for prenatal care because they like the midwifery model of care, even if they're not eligible to birth with us. But about 80% of pregnancies fall into that healthy, normal pregnancy window. And then we've been partnering with other nonprofits. This past month, we filmed at Wonder Lab in their Science Sprouts place, tummy time video. We're working on editing that now to release later this month. But it was really fun. We came in with partners from El Centro Comunal Latino and did it as a bilingual video with a couple and their baby. And so we really releasing that with English and Spanish soon. And it's really to promote the science of tummy time, why it's good for babies and their caregivers. So Tandem is really focused on its values. So I have this dream. I have a catchphrase for Tandem that I just want to hear one day on NPR. It's because you are more than your uterus. And that's it's one day I'm going to hear that on NPR and I'm going to know I've made it. Get a sponsorship out there, but truly that's true. This is something I've experienced as a person who's experienced both obstetric care and midwifery care for my own pregnancies. It makes a big difference when you feel like the person taking care of you in this monumental life change sees more than an organ and sees you as more than an organ. We want to accept everyone, whether they can pay or not. Now, we see and saw the fiscal instability of BABS, so we're looking very carefully at where we have to accept fees and where we can do sliding scales and where we can be free. But we know that out of the gate, we're going to be accepting Medicaid and we're going to be accepting cash payments, and then for the birth center. And then as we see our clientele and where they're coming from in terms of their insurance carriers, we will negotiate insurance contracts. We've been talking to other birth centers in Indiana about their insurance negotiations. Most of them accept at least a few carriers. And we've gotten some really great tips for how to conduct those negotiations, because sometimes it can be very challenging for birth centers to get a fair rate, but we think we can go in and get fair rates for our services once we see what carriers are going to be the most important ones for us to negotiate with payers. So equity and inclusion. You cannot talk about maternal health care without talking about disparities, racial, systemic racism. It's, when we say we're third worst in the country, that's an average across all races. And when you break it down, our care for women of color, and particularly Black women, it's just unacceptable. And so we're really trying to make sure that in terms of our policies and procedures, we're taking into account we're trying to incorporate our understandings of systemic racism and how we can both address that in people's health and how we provide healthcare to them, and also anticipate it in the problems that they may face because of that. And then, and we're working with Michelle with the garden so that we can have trainings and for all of our board, our volunteers, and eventual staff when we're hiring to make sure that everybody is on the same page. I love data. I'm a data person. My background is healthcare informatics. So we want very much to take data very seriously, be transparent with our data, share data. The only thing that's going to be a barrier to sharing data for us is we obviously have to comply with HIPAA. So we can't share patient data too freely, but we absolutely are working to collect as much data as we can to support outcomes, and also to find problems, to find where a mistake happened, an outcome was not good or wasn't ideal, and fix those problems right away rather than letting them sit. So knowing that the baby showing up is not the end, it's the beginning, is important. And we're here for everybody. So while some people will be coming to give birth in our birth center, we really only expect to have about 70, 75 births per year in our birth center. We're with 2 birthing suites, approximately 2 full-time equivalents of nurse midwives. We may have more working on a part-time basis. We think that 75 is a good number where we're going to have good work-life balance and still be able to support operations for our providers. So, but that doesn't mean everything else is restricted. Everything else is open to everyone. If you want to come to our childbirth education classes, we're going to be covering childbirth education for everybody, whether you're giving birth at the hospital, at home, at the birth center, some other flavor, and they plan to give birth in the car on the way to the hospital, whatever their options are. We're going to be covering, the postpartum health is for everybody. It doesn't matter where you gave birth, or if you worked with midwives, or if you want an epidural or had a scheduled cesarean. Everybody is welcome and should receive community and care from our organization. It's only, the actual birth center itself will have a smaller clientele, but for everybody else, there will be all the other services. So that's Tandem. Let's go there. Do you have any questions?
I wonder if you could tell us, I had to step out for a minute early on. Did you tell us how the name of the place got started to be Tandem?
Oh, well, Hattie had this as a name that she thought about for a lactation consulting business, because nursing, breastfeeding, chest feeding is really all about the relationship between you and your baby. And but I ride a tandem bike around town. You may have seen me with a kid on the back and then a trailer behind that. I ride with 3 kids. So when she suggested this as a possible name, I just immediately latched onto it. But what we really love about the name is that it takes the hierarchy out of healthcare. It isn't your doctor telling you, the patient, how you should be taken care of or what you should do. It's the midwife is coming to meet you where you're at, and they're bringing a certain set of skills and expertise, but they're also acknowledging your skills and expertise and knowledge about your own body and your own needs and your own values, and bringing those together so that you best understand what your options are and how to seek the care that you need. So Tandem is really about emphasizing that partnership and de-emphasizing a hierarchy in your healthcare.
And how many are there? Did you mention that? Did I miss that?
How many
birthing centers might there be around the country? Any idea?
Oh, I don't have the country numbers. There are a lot, and you'll find, there are some states with much better, much more open environments for birth centers, and others with less open environments. So you'll see like a state where there are very, very few, and then you'll see a state like Florida where they're everywhere. And in Indiana, there are either 7 or 8. There's a new birth center that just opened south of Fort Wayne in Berne, Indiana.
Oh, yeah.
And there's one in Indianapolis. There's another birth center that's trying to open on a similar timeline to us called Matriarch, that's going to be on the north side of Indy. And we did a tour back in February of birth centers of Indiana, and we stopped at several. We went to Goshen Birth Center. There's a birth center in Napanee that's one of the other nonprofit ones. Most of them are for-profit endeavors. And we went to Holy Family Birth Center in Fort Wayne, which is very new. And so, for example, Holy Family gave us all of their policies and procedures. They were like, here you go.
Nice.
Here's your starter bundle. Good luck. And we're like,
Very good.
thank you.
No need to reinvent that wheel.
Yes, we do not need to reinvent the wheel. We'll just customize for us. So and the newest birth center in Bern, which is Grace Midwifery, they had some surplus pulse oximeters, and they said, we'll send them to you. You take these, because they had some back ordered, and then their order came in, and then they ended up with extras. So everybody has been very supportive. We've been talking a lot with the Matriarch group that's also, in the startup phase. We went through our budget spreadsheets together. Like, what are you
You might have frozen there, Julie.
figuring?
Oh, there she goes.
So
And again.
there are parts of
So she meant, yeah. So she
And-
mentioned,
Oh,
she
there she
mentioned, yeah, she mentioned board, because it's a nonprofit, right? I wondered if she has your board together yet, or how is that working?
We've got 4 members right now, and we're adding very soon a few more. We have, and we're still recruiting. for sure.
Okay.
We'll
Are
have
you
9 total
Are
members.
you working with Nonprofit Central at the library at all? I mean, that's a huge local resource for beginning nonprofits. Do you know about
Yes.
that?
Bobby Overman went through our Jack
Good.
Hopkins grant with the Fine Tooth
Good.
Comb.
Excellent.
And then we did the Meet the Media event with them prior to the pandemic. And
Yes.
we did the virtual.
Well, we got Meet the Media and that's it. What was after Meet the Media?
We did tech tools for nonprofits with Marcus Whitted, the
Yes.
Nonprofit Central. And
Yes.
we're trying to do as many of their programs. And we've definitely solicited help from Bobby on a number of things.
Good. Excellent. Thank you.
Julie, I just wanted to say I am so happy to hear that we're opening one here.
Yeah.
I am a mother of 4 children. All 4 were born with midwives, 3 in freestanding birth centers, 1 at home, all 4 in the water. And I won't mention my age, but I'm well past childbearing years. And the fact that these services have diminished since I gave birth just astounds me, because I thought it was at that point people really recognizing the quality of the care and the choice given to mothers about delivery. We're going to be on the rise, not diminishing. And, I will say that it was in 2 different states, New Jersey, a little bit more open, and Missouri, a little bit more open, I think, primarily because of a large Amish community, which actually we have quite a bit in Indiana. So I'm surprised that there's not more.
Most of the birth centers in northern Indiana are serving the Amish.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So happy to see that you guys have opened this. So just cheers to you guys. And that's just great news.
Okay, well, if you know anybody with 100,000 or so in their pocket. or something.
Okay. Unfortunately, that's not me, but yeah.
Have you thought about checking with the Community Foundation of Bloomington, Monroe County? I don't know if some of their donors have this as a focus.
So Marcus has told us that he will tell us the minute they have grant opportunities open.
Okay, good.
Because their grant cycle has been skewed by the pandemic.
Yep.
But if there are other ways to leverage the community foundation that you know of, if it's just talking to individuals who are.
Oh, I think if you're connected with Marcus, you'll be fine. Yeah.
Julie,
That's great.
Fingers on everything.
Is my mic working? Oh, it is working. Okay, good. Julie, so two things. First is, like Michelle, my wife and I used a midwife with our first child through Babs, and it was wonderful. It was just such an amazing experience. And by the time our second child came along, Babs had closed and we didn't have that option. And it was so different. I'm just so happy you're here. I'm so happy you're doing this. I've been texting some people while you've been giving your presentation. So I'm glad to hear that. To Liz's point in the Community Foundation, one of the brand new things that I think donors are really excited about is called a donor advised fund. Mm-hmm. And it's where they give a chunk of money, or I'm sorry, that's really crass. They make an investment, they give a gift to a community foundation, and the community foundation helps them decide where those funds go. It is increasingly popular in the philanthropic world. It's called a donor advised fund, and community foundations have a lot of leverage to say, like, well, there's this new place or whatever. So check that out.
I will.
And to add on to something that Peter just said about community foundation, maybe even talking to Marcus about this being an opportunity for an impact investment. So that's something that our community foundation is really ramping up. They're dedicated to seeing it be successful. It's very new for them here. But when I think about their mission, what they're trying to do with impact investing, and I think about what you're doing with Tandem, I think there's some synergy there. So even talking to Marcus about that could be another funding stream.
Yeah.
Another similar, well, I keep trying to think about how you could get IU involved. And I know IU sponsors faculty and staff to have a certain number of care.com emergency days each year. And right now, because there's a big push for women being hit hard with the pandemic and leaving their jobs, like it could be good timing to pitch the like a certain number of days in the postpartum stay area for as part of like maternity care. So that could be. And then another thing that IU does that always fills up quickly is parenting classes, mostly related to like parenting mindfulness. Like I used to try for like 4 years to try and get in it's like an online class that's opened. And I never got in. There's always a ton of demand. So that's something that could also potentially be a funding boon. And I just wanted to say, as someone who had one child in a freestanding birth center and one by scheduled C-section, I really appreciate the mission that's open and welcoming to all women or all people having babies or adopting babies. Even sounds like the birth center I was at, I didn't feel welcome to come back the second time. Even though like I just have a body that's hard to get babies out of. I definitely felt like, I definitely felt like I couldn't be a part of that community. And I really liked that. I mean, that community was important to me for my first child. And so I think it's really cool that in a lot of your presentation, you made it very clear that this is a space that's open to everybody. So I think that's a really cool mission.
What about working with the library on their Foundation Center grant software? Do you know about that?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. Yeah. Good.
Definitely.
Ma'am, I echo your excitement about this. So I have not birthed babies yet. I do have tons of experience mothering, but I have not let them come out of this body. And actually, when I first connected with Julie, I was very honest about my fears associated with doing this whole thing, like with just growing a human, right? It may be kind of ridiculous, my fear, but Julie was so kind and so nurturing during that call that I literally walked away thinking like, if I'm going to do this, I'm doing it at Tandem. Like, I don't know what else is out there, what other resources may exist, but I feel like I can call Julie and be like, this baby is on its way. And Julie's going to make sure this is a good experience for our family. So Julie, thank you for coming and bringing this information to the Monroe County Women's Commission. I also, for the commissioners, think this is a really good opportunity for us to think about when we did our MoCo COCO warm-up, right? One of the things that we talked about largely was access to good resources for women, this is something that we absolutely can get behind. So Julie, as we've taken your presentation and we'll continue digesting it, maybe you can send us a few bullet points, right? Of how can we support you? What does support look like coming from the commission? Give us some very specific tasks. And then as a commission, we can decide how do we execute some of those things. So that I think that could be really helpful. We'll obviously continue spreading the word about Tandem. And we would love to be there on opening day. But let us know in this process. I know that you're looking for funders, right?
Yes.
Well, we can think about that and share within our network. But as a commission, right, how do we support Tandem?
And can you also just educate me a little bit? I'm vaguely aware that this sort of commission might exist in my community, but I can't say that I'm extremely in tune with what all the Women's Commission has done historically and how it's participated. And I would love to have a super quick history lesson.
Well, I can speak from the chair perspective, but I really think if we have a superstar like Liz on the call who knows the history through and through, I think, Liz, this could be a good parting gift for us. You want to run down some history about the commission?
Sure. When I first joined the commission years ago, there was a whole big healthcare study going on. And then we did a big presentation and interviewed many, many healthcare providers, which included mental health as well as other things, but it did include some maternal. But I think that this commission, in my memory, has talked about this issue of maternal health being a big problem, and the death rate is just astounding, I think. And so we have talked about that topic off and on for many years. And so that, in my own personal mind, that has been a big issue that I would like to see addressed. And I'm so excited. Julie, I know I've seen you at these MPA things, but I didn't get the scope of what it is you have to offer. I mean, I think, I don't know where you're at with promoting this, but somewhere, can you talk the newspaper into getting you an article?
The Herald Times is supposed to publish an article tomorrow.
Well, good timing. Good timing. That would be great.
I'm a little nervous about it.
Yeah, well, that'll get you that'll go a long way in this community, especially with, more people who may take the paper that may not always do as much social media, but also may have some more financial resources that could help you with this issue.
We've also had an interview in with Bloom for a while, and it sounded like that's going to be published maybe in their next edition too. So
good. And I would encourage you to think about service clubs. Like, I'm a Rotarian. So service clubs love to hear about these kinds of things that are going on. So they oftentimes fundraise, and then they select projects they're going to fund. So this could be something, you could make a presentation. You've done a wonderful job here today. You can make a presentation at a service club, either virtually or in person. So there's Rotary here, there's Kiwanis, there's several different ones that I'm thinking of. I'm thinking of Kiwanis because they focus on children as well. I'm not sure about, birthing mother and their children, but I know they do, that a big part of their focus is children. So I think that you might want to think about service clubs in the area and make a presentation. See if you could get on their program committee. I would talk to the program chair and see if you could get on their program committee to make an upcoming presentation. And those kinds of networking where you're going to go out and talk about what it is you have planned and how people can help you, and have that defined clearly. Because they will ask, how can they help you? Because, like, for instance, Rotary's mission is service above self. So how can they service with you to help, right? So think about, how it is you can get people and organizations involved more broadly than where you're at. And I think that the article in the HT sounds wonderful. So, but I think I'm really, really happy to see this blooming here in Bloomington. It is just so exciting to think that it could occur here and be helpful to women. I was lucky enough that I didn't have bad experiences in the hospital when I had both of my children, but not everybody's so lucky, and want different things, Yeah. So I think that I like options a lot. And so this is just another option for people who really want to experience it their way. So I'm quite happy to hear about this. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Liz, that was great. Just to add a little bit to that, Julie, what we really pride ourselves on doing is being an advisory group to our county leaders. So what is it that our community is telling us that they need? And then we go and advocate for those things. We also, and I'm really impressed with this commission on their lens on equity issues. So we're constantly thinking about what groups are not being supported and represented, and how do we bring them to the forefront. But then we do some programming as well. So one of our annual programs is Girls Coding Camp. So not necessarily linked to adult women, but absolutely nurturing young women. We created an internship program that gets high school or college students engaged with the commission. This group I've been really impressed with. This commission has been a really good programming body. Last year, we did a social justice campaign, 26 ways in 26 days to honor Breonna Taylor and social unrest. We've done surveys, we've done collaborative retreats. We absolutely wholeheartedly support the work of Bloomington's Commission on the Status of Women, which actually Nicole is the liaison from that commission. So our goal is to hear the needs of women, work to address those needs, and hold our county leadership accountable to meeting the needs of women. So this is something, when we think about Tandem, this is a great opportunity. You are more than welcome to return. These meetings are public, second Fridays at noon. You can absolutely come and hang out with us and keep us updated on Tandem or other things.
Children hanging on me.
Yes, these are public meetings, so feel free to join us. We do thank you so much for such a great presentation and spending time with us. Do we have any other questions for Julie about Tandem? Okay, Julie, keep us updated. We are here to support. Okay, let me pull my agenda up. I'm sorry, I did minimize it for a second. Continuing business, where in the world are we going in 2021? So before we jump into talking about our commissioner priorities, Peter, I do see that you sent an email about what in the world needs to start happening with meetings, right? Do you want to speak a little bit to that?
Sure, it's still a little bit up in the air, but in April, the Indiana legislature passed a bill saying that local county governments and city governments, for that matter, needed to pass an ordinance defining how we meet. And the purpose of this bill was to push us into in-person meetings. So county council and the county commissioners will soon be drafting laws that are ordinances that go with this law. And it seems, and that's what we're going to be doing. This law asks is that commissions be meeting in person, that 50% of the commissioners be present at any meeting, that you can attend meetings virtually, but there are some stipulations on how often you do that and under what conditions you can do that. So this is all coming from the Indiana legislature. More details are coming, but we will most likely be meeting in person starting, I don't know, maybe in June, maybe in July.
Thank you for that, Peter. So I know when we had this conversation, I want to say earlier this year, late last year, I asked you all, what's your preference? Some people are like, we are not comfortable going back in person. Some were like, we will. And at that time, we weren't talking about this mass vaccination. So if you all feel like there's something that you want to share with me, whether it's, you can do this privately one-on-one or via email. If you're like, I'm not comfortable in person, and if that will cause you to resign your seat or create hardships for your service, please let me know, because we want to keep these conversations going at the leadership level, right? I would love for you all to serve, but I respect where we all stand with dealing with the pandemic. Okay. So if you're like, yes, I'm open to meeting in person, send that to me in a note. If you're like, listen, I can't, perhaps you're a primary caregiver, or there are just things, you know, about your personal circumstances that don't permit you to do that safely, let me know and we can have some conversations. Thank you for that update, Peter.
And Nichelle, based on the feedback you get, please feel free to forward that to the commissioners and to the county council, because that's going to help us inform the ordinance going forward.
Okay. Okay. So when I think about what our priorities are as commissioners moving forward, I reviewed our meeting minutes and kind of just took like that self-assessment of what have I been hearing us talk about most. One thing I want to say is that Girls Coding Camp is back on the table. We are actively planning for Girls Coding Camp to happen again. And the partners that have come to the table that said they're willing to support are the IU Luddy School of Informatics, CWIT, so the Center of Excellence for Women in Technology, led by Michelle. We love having you at the table, Michelle. RBB and MCCSC have both come to the table. They're actively planning as well. And then IU Admissions, we're still at the table. So I sent you all an email. It's been a couple months now, a response from our partners at Ivy Tech about the grant funding. Don't know if you all recall this, but the email was from Susie Graham. So here's one thing I want to say. This goes back to, and I don't know if you all recall this from other meetings, but I had been following up with them to find out what funding was left for the camp. Okay. It took quite some time, and eventually I did hear back. And as you see in the email, there was about just over $17,000 that was left. However, what I learned in that email at that time is that the money was being reallocated to Ivy Tech camps. That does not include Girls Coding Camp, because it's not an Ivy Tech camp, right? That was an Ivy Tech partnership. We jumped through so many hoops with this group last year, and I did not want to fight this battle at that time. So I just let it go. So I say all that to say the funding that we thought we were going to have to run Girls Coding Camp again, we do not have from this grant.
So let me ask a question about that. What was the donor intent, as we call it in the fundraising world, right? What was the donor intent on the money that was donated? The
donor intent was Girls Coding Camp.
Right. So how whoever is managing this money, how do they go back to the donor and tell them that that's what they used it for then?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if you all recall this, but these are the conversations that Michelle and I were routinely having last year about transparency around the funding.
I remember quite a bit about that.
We submitted we worked with him to submit one grant application, the amount of $25,000. We never got the copy of what they actually submitted for. So when we started asking for it, they came back and said, well, now we need to redo the meeting and rewrite the proposal. So then we rewrote the proposal. In the proposal, and again, we've been transparent with you all on this call, but we even asked, okay, so when we finish this fall, if we don't use all of the funding, can we use it for the spring, right? We were told that they were going to get back to us about that. There was just a lack of transparency completely around all of this. What we were told when we started was that $25,000 would go to Girls Coding Camp, provided that they didn't get funding from the Community Foundation from another set of camps. They got that funding, so the $50,000 was supposed to go entirely to Girls Coding Camp. Now they're saying that the $17,600 is going elsewhere. I'm not really sure how we deal with this, if I'm being honest. I will say that Michelle and I tried as much as we could last year to have this transparency around the project. We tried to consistently bring back the numbers to you all. I don't really know what we should do at this point. Does anyone have any thoughts?
I think that we can't, because the money wasn't granted to the commission. The money was granted to Ivy Tech with the understanding it would be used with us as a collaboration. So I think we are in no position to require anything. We've tried everything we can. As I understand it, it's their responsibility because they're the grant holder.
Well, definitely the grant, the grant recipient, which would be Ivy Tech, the people that receive the money or the pass-through or whatever they're calling themselves, would definitely be accountable for how those monies were spent. So whatever issue may or may not happen there is on their onus. I mean, they're responsible for that. So I don't know how, that may occur to challenge that, but that's certainly, it is definitely on them to be accountable for the money and how the donor intended for it to be spent. So, I mean, we don't have any skin in the game there. The commission wouldn't get in trouble for that because we thought it was going to go for that, right? So if that was the intent, I didn't see, is there any language? Did you see any language anywhere from the donor about what it was for and specifics and all that?
There was so very limited. There was like a web page that allowed us to see what it was the Verizon Rural Initiatives grant. There was a web page where we saw but it was an invite only application, right? So Ivy Tech had been invited to apply for it, and they felt that Girls Coding Camp would be a good reason, would be a good way to use the grant. So that's why they reached out to us. And I don't know if you all remember, but we got called on, I think, a Thursday, and they needed to turn the application around by Saturday. So we jumped on the call very quickly and wrote it. So there was so there was a very limited amount of information that was available. I have tried to follow up with the Verizon group to just learn more about how does this work from your perspective, right? To make sure that we're understanding it clearly. I haven't heard back, so I don't know.
So was somebody supposed to write a report about the project back to the grantor? So, I mean, that's really the telling language, right? Is how you substantiate what you got and what you spent it on. So I don't know if anyone is privy to that, but that would be very telling.
Well, now remember, we were the body that was doing that. But then when we did that rewriting of the grant, Ivy Tech completely took ownership of that, and in many ways required us to release our deliverables to be able to accomplish things in a timely manner for the camp. So when we reached out to them about reports, let us know what's going on, we get these emails that are essentially what we're asking for: the number of girls that completed the camp, update about where are the swag items and all of I mean, even down to the fact that we asked for a very specific design for the swag items so that they could be reused. That design was not honored. So now there's just a lot of stuff that happened that we can't get transparent information about. So I'll tell you this, the biggest disappointment is we have been partnering with them for years to do this. And when it was in person, our students really loved being able to be in the Apple lab, right? And it also was a great way to bridge this town and gown divide, right? You had community agencies, a community college, a four-year institution working together really well on a project. And when we were doing it in kind, there was obviously not nearly as many challenges. We got this grant, we expanded our program, right, to be able to offer Raspberry Pi and Ozobots, an additional track for Brown Girls Who Code. And we did this in mind, knowing that we had at least enough funding to pull it off for one more camp. And now we don't have that funding, so we have to figure out what does camp look like this year. We have to figure out if it's in person, where do they go? We've been brainstorming about doing satellite locations this year rather than just one location. And instead of doing a summer camp, the school districts feel that is actually a better model to do the after school program. So we're leaning towards that. So we're trying to find these satellite locations. The Luddy School of Informatics, Dr. Lamara Warren has been a phenomenal partner, has instructors lined up and ready to be able to do the coding instruction and maybe even pivot us from the Scratch curriculum that we've been using to more advanced opportunities, which is one thing we heard our students say in the camp. So we can still pull this off. It likely will go back to an in-kind camp, which limits our capacity, right? but I think we can pull it off again. Just wanted you all to know an update on where we stood with the funding.
So Ivy Tech knows we're not working with them, is that right?
No, I didn't respond until I could have a conversation with the commissioner.
All right.
I didn't want this to be Nichelle said, right? So, yeah.
Well, we need to decide then.
We do.
Mm-hmm.
We do. So I think this may be an opportunity to take up a vote on whether or not we continue pursuing a partnership with Ivy Tech Community College for Girls Coding Camp.
Do we have any idea what Ivy Tech might be expecting or not expecting from us on that?
Well, when we left, the instructors, who have been phenomenal, by the way, Nick and Chris Carroll and Bill Warden, Nick LaPlante, Chris Carroll, Bill Warden, phenomenal. They want to keep teaching. They want to keep working with our students.
Yeah.
And full transparency, they didn't have, from what I understand, they didn't have anything to do with this more fiscal, logistical side. They literally were just doing the instruction.
I'm sure of that.
Yeah.
Well.
I know. It's a very sticky situation.
I have to go back and read that email, Michelle, because I got the impression that it was the end of the partnership. Not that we were going to have to vote. So now it's been a bit since I've read that, but I didn't expect that we were having to take a vote on whether or not we would continue a partnership. My reading of that a bit ago was that they were pulling out. But, you know, that's encouraging if that's not how you took it.
So I took it as Girls Coding Camp would no longer be funded by the grants. And I took it as there's another grant now that they've started to fund STEM related camps. So I think they were making it clear that this $17,000 is no longer accessible to your camp. It didn't sound like, though, that their faculty weren't interested in still teaching, which I think that becomes the question. Do we still work with their faculty that have worked with our program now for 4 years? Do we keep them on our PR as a partner, right? Or do we just decide to go in a completely different direction and use our resources from other places?
So remind me who you worked with directly at Ivy Tech. Was it Susie Graham and or someone else?
Susie Graham ended up being the writer for all of the things. Mm-hmm. Adam Gross oversees the office that we were working with, but we didn't really work with Adam a lot. Mm-hmm. So the planning team was always the two instructors, Bill and Nick. Chris Carroll worked to coordinate the faculty. And then Susie Graham came in once the grant became a conversation. Yeah. Oh, and Jordan Ferguson.
Okay. Yeah, she's the fund development person there, I remember.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
She's the CFRE there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So what do we do? Where do we go from here?
I'm torn. Literally torn. Somebody that's not, I mean, how many have not been through all of this and might be able to give fresh perspective thoughts about this? Just hearing about it now.
I mean, I'm just hearing about it now, but I'm not sure that I have like a lot of ideas. I mean, I think a confirmation email from us to Ivy Tech just saying like, just confirming that the partnership you initiated to fund Girls Coding Camp is not moving forward. We'll seek other donors and other partnerships, just confirming that you don't have resources or time or staff to contribute. Don't want your name, like, you know, like just confirming. And then before we seek other similar partnerships. So if it's something they want to have, be a part of, it's clear. It sounds, I mean, I'm disappointed that they would do that. I'm disappointed that they would pull the funding,
Mhm.
but it sounds
Do we
like
think that we should invite them to a meeting?
Yeah.
Like,
I
is
like
this an
that.
opportunity to reach out to their chancellor
Yeah.
and say, hey, we've really been trying to figure this out. Like, can you help us understand more? Like, because maybe we're just missing something in the emails.
Mhm.
And maybe there's some greater context that could happen if they were invited to a meeting.
Well, I definitely think that couldn't hurt. You know, and I feel bad for the instructors that have worked with us closely, who really enjoy it, who really, they're not involved in that financial component. They do it out of the goodness of their hearts. They do get in kind, you know, I don't know if it's release time, you know, I'm sure it's considered part of their job with Ivy Tech. So that makes it a little more dicey than if they just did it voluntarily, but they have no skin in those financial decisions. And I wouldn't, you know, I wouldn't want to cut them out when they had no control over that.
Right. I agree with that totally. Yeah. Do you think you could draw in, who did Susie work with at IB Tech to process the money? Do you know?
I don't know, but what I'll do is I'll reach out to the planning team, because maybe even our instructors want to pop one and say, hey, this is what, you know, we want to be a part of it because we've been a partner. I'll reach out to Susie and invite her as well. But I'll also reach out to Chancellor Vaughn, because I know there was a point where she was looped into the conversation as well about, and she signed off on the financial documents, right?
Well, there
so
you
maybe
go.
there's
you
just
need to
some
include her now then, for sure.
Okay. I'll do that. I'll send an email and invite them to our June meeting and see if we can just keep learning more. My hope is that this was just a fluke, that the funding made things really awkward and really weird. And maybe there was some feedback loop that didn't get closed about the intentions around the grant. I'm hoping that it is something that's like, oh my goodness, that makes complete sense. I'm so sorry. Like, here's the clarification.
Yeah,
yes, let's keep working.
Yeah, they need a way out.
Yeah. Okay, that's what we'll do. I'll send that email and I will copy all of you on it as well in case you have questions or see, you know, want to see any responses that we may receive. Okay. So I say all that to say, Girls Coding Camp is happening, and we have a planning team. Myself and Michelle are a part of it. If you all are interested in being a part of the meeting, please, or the planning team for Girls Coding Camp, please let me know. Happy to bring you on board. Do we have any other commission priorities that we'd like to bring up at today's meeting to say, this is what I think we should be focusing on moving forward, or this is something that we must achieve or take a critical lens to in this next year? I know that we talked about continuing to build off of what was learned from the Moco Coco warm-up. So we'll continue doing that. Is there any other pressing issue that is on anyone's mind or heart that we feel the commission needs to speak to?
Well, maybe the fact that now all the schools have the permission, so to speak, to go back 5 days a week full time. What does that mean for families? Now we're almost coming up on the end of the school year. I mean, we can't do too much in that length of time, but what are we missing, or what are they missing they're going to need that the community could help them with, right? I don't know. I think it's an interesting time of year to think about. All of a sudden they're going back 5 days a week full time now, you know? I mean, here we are homing in many schools, and then all of a sudden they got to rev up to go back. And I'm going, what? Now we're upsetting the apple cart just one more time. We couldn't just write it out until summer began, you know? I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good point of discussion.
I think we ought to have our ears open, you know, as to what we might be hearing as this transpires. I haven't even heard for sure what MCC or RBB are doing about it, right? Are they kicking in and going along with it, or what are they doing? I haven't heard for sure. I haven't looked at their websites or anything. Maybe they're not going to comply with that. I don't know.
I am not sure. I haven't heard anything.
It's just another clinker, and already just, go ahead.
My stepkids go to Edgewood and they've all been back 5 days a week since January.
Oh, so there's no change there then. Okay.
I think there's an option to do hybrid if you'd like. But
Okay.
all of my stepkids wanted to be in person. They were really tired of the online schooling. So
Same with
And I
my
know-
kids. My kids are 5 days a week.
Yeah, I mean, good grief. Yeah. Okay. Well, maybe it won't be as big a thing as I think it will be, but it's just another clinker for those who, have been still homeschooling or whatever, right?
Mhm.
I know that for the CDC released yesterday a statement that is lifting the mandate for masks and social distancing. Now I know that locally we will have our leadership make their own decisions, right? But I think with that coming down from a federal level, I think that's going to impact, obviously, what institutions decide to do about who's coming where and doing what. I was on the school board meeting and MCCSC did say that they will keep the option for online, but they also made it very clear that once your student is online, they are online. So they're not doing as much fluctuating between online to in-person. And once you're in person, if you register as an in-person student, you are an in-person student. So I know that they had some challenges. Dr. Winston highlighted some of the challenges of teachers feeling so torn between, is one of my students virtual? Are they online? Some teachers doing like the hybrid model, right? So this hopefully will address those concerns. They feel that they had a pretty good experience doing virtual. They want to keep that, at least for what I understand, for this year. I'm not sure beyond.
I think another thing we didn't ever really talk about that much that's been a hot topic in the city is the duplex issue. And so, it still could be changed. It's been accepted, I think, with 14 or so the first year or something. I forget what the exact parameters are, but it's a complicated issue. There's no doubt about it. And it seems to me like the neighborhoods are really up in arms, so to speak, about it. And I think it's a shame that Bloomington has now seemed more divided than I can remember for a very long time as a result.
Okay. So we got the housing duplex issue. We've got COVID support. Anything else? Any other priorities? Okay, well, if you think of anything, please don't hesitate to let me know. Women's Equality Day will be coming up in August, and I would love for our commission to think about what is it that we want to do. I know the Bloomington Commission always rocks it out. They always have something. Nicole, do you know if you all, or are you all talking about Women's Equality Day yet?
We have that on our agenda for next month.
Okay. Can you keep MCWC in the know? We would love to support, obviously not over plan, right? So if it's better to just partner with you all, we are happy to do that.
That sounds great.
I looked at the calendar, it's on a Thursday this year.
Is it?
August 26th.
I'm in September. Yeah, you're right. Okay. While I pivoted towards Nicole, do you have any updates for us from BCSW?
Yes, so we have a legislative subcommittee, which is going to put forth a report to the city council at some point in the near future. But the thing that we talked about at our last meeting was I don't know if I brought this up last meeting, but the shackling of incarcerated women while they are giving birth, and how Indiana is one of 6 states that still participates. And what we found out was there were 2 bills introduced this year in January into the state legislature trying to end both the shackling of incarcerated women while they're giving birth, as well as providing, sanitary supplies and postpartum care. And neither one of them made it to debate. That's not the proper way of saying it. So what we're doing moving forward is we're reaching out to the two representatives that sponsored those bills and see how we as a commission can help support the reintroduction of those bills in the next session, whether that's by working with representatives on, from a variety of different places or other commissions throughout the state, to try to get more than just two people sponsoring the bill. So as we reach out to them, depending on what they need and what they think will be the most successful way forward, it would be great to have the Monroe County Women's Commission on board, either, to sign a letter of support ending this practice, or I'm not really sure what they need yet, but that is our main focus.
Nicole, could you say more about how the Bloomington Women's Commission is working towards that effort besides just being aware of it? What's the boots on the ground actions that are being taken?
Yeah, so at first our plan was to reach out to other commissions and then representatives in the state legislature to get a bill written and into session, but that was already done by the time we had started to gather that information. And then it was just recently not voted, but just like tabled. And so really our next steps are to reach out to the two people who introduced the bill to see what they need. And we are awaiting for their reply.
Okay.
But yes, it went from us spearheading it to seeing somebody else had already done it, which is great.
Right.
Fortunately, it just didn't make it very far this session.
You know if State Senator Yoder was one of the sponsors of the bill?
She was not, and I don't have the two who are on me, but they weren't from around here.
She might be good to speak with and ask her strategies on how to make it work better the next time, right?
Yes.
Mhm.
Yep, she's on our list.
Yeah.
We really want to talk to the two that introduced the bill to see if there was something that, having written the bill and introduced it, if there was some language that they wish they could change
Mhm.
or what. But yes, bringing in more representatives is most probably one of the ways forward.
Okay, good stuff. Thank you.
Yeah.
So the next thing on our agenda would have been what's important to you, but we've already posed that question and put that out there. So I won't require us to spend more time on that, but I do want to open it up just for commissioner comments, thoughts, feedback, questions, anything that you all want to share. Thanks, Peter. Does this mean all hearts and minds are clear? Okay. Seeing none. Liz, thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to be a part of this group.
It's been wonderful working with you.
And you
Thank
can
you
reach out.
all.
You can reach out to me. I'll make sure Michelle has my private email before I leave so that she can pass it along to you if you need it. Okay. I'm not opposed to maybe even attending a meeting every now and then. I just won't have a vote, but I sure can talk.
Yeah. We believe that. Liz, can you send me your formal, I am resigning letter so I can turn that into our county leadership?
Yeah,
thank you.
Yeah,
It's not effective until you get it, right, Michelle?
There it is. Well, thank you all. Happy Friday and enjoy the rest of your weekend. Try to enjoy some of this good weather.
Yeah. Same to you.
Thank you, Katz and Monroe County Tech Services for holding us down, making sure we had a successful meeting. Thank you.
Thanks for being here, Julie.
Yes, thank you, Julie.
Yeah, thanks, Julie.
Okay, enjoy your weekend. Meeting is adjourned.
Bye-bye.